So when we develop metta, we can develop metta on 3 levels. There's development of metta in deed, metta in action. And this is any physical action that is based in metta. We can develop metta in speech. And that's obvious, it's skillful, kind speech. Or we can develop metta in the mind, which is primarily what we're doing here. In Pali, these are called mano kamma metta for metta in the mind, vachi kamma metta for metta in speech, and kaya kamma metta, metta in action. The development of mano kamma metta, the metta in the mind, is obviously the most important, because obviously the other 2 spring from that. It's the foundation of the other 2. And this development of mano kamma metta is mind and heart work. Someone in their interviews today said something quite beautiful. They said they'd even, 2 days into the retreat, they've noticed a huge shift in how they're relating to things. They said habitually they always dwell and obsess about faults, but now with metta, being able to incline to the good. This is the essence of this mind work that we call the development of metta, metta bhavana. And regardless of what the body is doing, sitting, standing, walking, lying down, we really aim in the development of the metta in this practice for a continuity of that. And the essence also of this purification is the gradual and sequential breaking down of barriers in the heart, so that the metta that we develop is, in the words of the chant that we do in the morning, boundless, without barriers, without prejudice, and without any preferences at all. In the chants that we do, and in the Metta Sutta, there are a number of references to this quality of metta. It says in the texts, "to all as to myself." And I really love this because it directly points to the fact that we connect with how we want to be happy. And then we have that well-wishing to all beings in the same way, so that no one being is any more special or precious than any other being. No single being is outside the scope or the range of this metta. Take a moment to let that in. No single human being is any more precious than any other single human being. And as far as pure metta is concerned, even an earthworm is as precious as a human being. All beings, in all realms and in all directions. It's just a very joyful thought.
È un pensiero,
joyful reflection.
And
yet the Buddha offered this teaching not from a place of living in some happy bubble where everything is great. He was very practical, very pragmatic, and he deeply understood the flaws of the world. So no single being is any more precious to the heart of metta than any other, no matter who they are or how good they are. In the Four Boundless States chant, there's a line in there that without hostility and without ill will. And in the Metta Sutta, right in the middle of the sutta, after the Buddha speaks of, radiating metta to all beings without exception, he drops this line in and it says, "Let no one work to undo another or despise any being in any state." No one work to undo another or despise any being in any state. Let no one through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. And it's such an interesting shift in the teaching. Because you're going along and the Buddha says, you know, from a place of safety and happiness, may all beings be at ease, whatever living beings there may be, you know, and you're like, oh yeah, may everybody be happy. And then, boom, let no one despise another. It's like, what? It's such a shift.
Check.
And the whole point of this is the Buddha is giving us a reality check. Because we might say to ourselves, oh, may all beings be happy, and actually feel that and think it's easy, without deeply questioning whether we can actually do that or not, whether we actually deeply feel that or not. So I was walking up towards the bees, which I actually love bees, so I love going up to the beehives up there. In this nice little metta bubble, may all beings be at ease, may all beings be at ease. And then I looked down and there was a little black speck on my leg. And my mind, the instant thought was, oh, a tick. Ugh. May all beings be at ease. Really? It wasn't a tick, but it was a wonderful moment. You know, because it's like, may all beings be at ease, may all beings be at ease. It's like, oh, but not you. Yeah, you're on your own, bye. So this practice really requires deep honesty, because what we wish to feel and reality are often very different. So as we go through the categories, we're just at the beginning here, but as we go through the categories, some are relatively easy. And the heart is open and soft, and we're going along. And then the thought comes of somebody annoying, or somebody who's hurt us, or some politician that scares us. And when I'm honest with myself, with certain beings, metta is not the first response. Or to be really honest, sometimes even the second or third. This is the nature of the heart with boundaries. And it's really not a place to be discouraged. Because, as I said last night, it's far, far better to see this than not to see it. Just, as I said last night, don't feed it. And actually surrender to imperfection is a huge relief. We put down our idealistic views of ourselves, see ourselves clearly, and then we can cultivate both metta and insight from that place. If we were perfectly enlightened, we wouldn't be here. So by definition, our path is not finished.
Quindi per
I speak for myself. So we cultivate metta, and we do the best we can anyway. So human nature and the nature of delusion is why we use these categories to gradually open the heart to deeper and deeper metta. Starting where we normally dwell, taking care of ourselves, and then moving out from there. And as I said last night, we begin where it's relatively easy and get progressively more difficult, moving further and further and further from this little bubble of self-centeredness that is this ego. So today and yesterday you've been working with cultivating metta for the dear person. And if today's interviews are any indication, things are beginning to cook quite nicely. Things are beginning to emerge. Even in these relatively harmonious relationships, the practice immediately goes to where the metta is blocked, to where there are barriers in the heart. And as I said last night, you know, what our culture calls love is actually quite self-centered. You know, we measure it by our preferences, or whether the other person agrees with us, or is in alignment with us. Or does the other person reflect back to us this image that we like of ourselves? And if you are, and if, you know, you're enhancing my view of myself, then I love you. But of course, as you know, the love that is metta is not limited to those that are close to us, who agree with us, to our families, to our friends. In developing the heart of metta, what we are developing is a spaciousness. And it's a spaciousness that allows other beings to be exactly as they are, rather than any of that other stuff. And it doesn't mean we don't have wishes for the other person or preferences of how we would like them to be. But to come from a place of the love that is metta is to come from a place of acceptance. It's allowing, its flexibility, its bigness of heart. Even in the face of working to improve the world, or working towards justice, working towards peace, we still accept the world as it is. And it's a profound freedom of heart that can love others just as they are. Someone recently in Holland gave me just a wonderful book by a woman named Edith Eger. And she's in her 90s. And at the age of 91, she wrote her first book. And it's a book called The Choice. As a 16-year-old girl, she and her sister and her parents found themselves in a train headed to Auschwitz. And this book is a little about that, but it's more about what she did with her life after that. Because it's such a moving book, because the whole point of the book is to say, from the place of having experienced that, going into it and out of it, she and her sister survived, saying, bad things happen. People can do horrible things to each other. That's just life. We have a choice. How? Well, basically, what now? This is a book with spine. It's so strong. Because she says you can be a victim and live in the past, or you can use that to transform your heart. And where I'm going with this in the context of what I've been talking about is, she says quite directly, she says, one of the proving grounds of our freedom of heart is how we relate to our loved ones. One of the proving grounds of our freedom of heart, how we relate to our loved ones. Do we accept each other as we are and learn to flow with that? Or do we make demands of each other? And this is a beautiful articulation of what metta is. Do we make inner demands of ourselves and of each other? That's not metta. If we can accept ourselves and accept each other as we are, and then work to improve what might be flawed, that's metta. And so already with this category of the beloved person, these barriers get revealed. And it continues, this is the point. All along the way with this practice, expect your preferences to be challenged. Expect your identity to be challenged. Because when we hit these barriers, they're the manifestation of identification, of preferences. As someone said about their practice, they said, well, the respected person and the dear friend feel a little different, which opened for them the question of, well, what gets in the way? And it went directly to that attachment, to an agenda about their loved one. So as we go through the categories and we challenge these places, when we switch categories particularly, things can get bumpy. This is the way it's supposed to work. Don't be concerned. And notice if there's any attachment to the way things were in the last category, if they were going nicely. Sometimes people say, oh, things were so calm and peaceful, but now the practice is going backwards. And I often think in that moment, oh, good. I don't always say it because it depends how it would be received. If I know the person well, I'll say, oh, that's good. These places where we react. We remember how someone did something that creates anger or jealousy or irritation or despair or whatever it is. These are these places of reactivity. These are the manifestation of what an American Zen Roshi, Joan Halifax Roshi, calls edge states. And these edge states are the places where we grow. So don't move away from them. Rest, don't push through them, you can't. But to rest against these places, to just rest there and re-incline the heart again and again and again to the metta, no matter what, anyway. This requires that we be gentle and that we gently disengage from our old habits of heart. And we also disengage from our habits of how we cope with challenge. So if you're hitting edges that are challenging, or if the practice is different than you imagined it would be, I think I said this many times today, it's okay, just keep going. And that just keep going requires both relaxation and diligence, both. So finding the middle way where we don't just run away from them, we don't just get too relaxed and stop the practice, nor do we get too forceful and try to push through them. Especially if there is fear coming up, that needs special care and particular gentleness. Don't try to push through fear, that just makes it worse. And in my own practice, I learned the hard way what happens when you try to push through fear. It's not pretty. So if fear is arising, don't just push it away and say, oh yeah, there's fear there, I'm okay, I feel balanced. Maybe we have a certain kind of equilibrium, but if the fear is there, respect it. And don't practice with a lot of effort to get through it. So there's a wonderful metaphor that I like for what this whole process is. Imagine you have a house that's been in the family for generations. And there's a basement with a big locked door. And you find the key and you go down there, you open the door and you shine a light down there into the basement. And there's all sorts of stuff. And the first impulse is to, I have to clean this out right away. It takes some effort to clean the heart, to purify the heart. But it's a gentle effort. So as I said at the very beginning, we're not creating metta.
Quindi, come ho detto all'inizio, noi non stiamo creando uno stato di metta.
We're just creating the conditions for the natural purity of the mind to be seen, to be known, to arise. And we're strengthening the tendency to go there first before we go to all these other reactions. This boundless heart of metta that has no barriers, no edge states, is the abiding place of awake beings. This Four Boundless States chant that we do is the Buddha's description of how he himself abided, lived. And step by step by step, we're going in that direction. And let that be encouraging rather than discouraging, an inspiration. It's a long journey. But as we walk this metta path, each step gets us a little closer to that freedom, where we get more and more at ease with these edge states. And there's a lot to take joy from. The month before I came here, I was walking
E nel mese precedente a questo stavo camminando.
And I never get tired of taking a long walk. It's a practice for me. And it's such an amazing thing to go from one place to another in a straight line over the course of a month, and to see the landscape change in front of you and disappear behind you. And to see dramatic landscapes appear before you, and then 2 days later, they're gone, they're way back there. You can't even see where they are anymore. So in this metta journey, we are going from further back than we can know, and we're going to further away than we can see. And we just have to take one step at a time. It's not that hard. What has happened behind us in the past can't be changed. Past events, whatever conditioning and karma we come in with, these are fixed. We can't change them. But as we walk this metta path, we really begin to see over and over again how we can change the heart's response to them. So old habits may even continue to play out. Those old thoughts may still continue to arise. You're so stupid, how could you have done that? But instead of taking it seriously, we look and go, oh, thank you for sharing. And we don't believe it.
E non ci crediamo più.
Because we know it's not true. So we, even if past habits continue to kind of mechanically play out in the mind, we can transcend our belief of them, our reactivity towards them. And we really begin to learn lightness as a response, humor as a response, instead of depression. Or it's like, oh God, this again. Edith Eger again says this: "It still isn't easy for me to talk about the past. But emotions, no matter how powerful, are not fatal. And they don't last." So, here's somebody with some very powerful conditioning that is very light and laughing. I find this incredibly inspiring. And I think I spoke of this last year but there's just this wonderful book called The Book of Joy. And it's an account of a meeting that lasted a week between His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And these two men have experienced more suffering in their lives together than I can possibly imagine. And this whole book is punctuated by chortling, laughing. They're laughing the whole week long. I take that as deeply inspiring too. These people are human beings like us. If they can do it, we can do it. His Holiness the Dalai Lama says that the recognition of our limitations and weaknesses can be very positive, because you use these as a spur to practice. And there's a Tibetan saying, wisdom and compassion are like rainwater. Both gather in the low places. So may we all, each of us, get comfortable with these low places. And through this, through the acceptance and the development of kindness in these places, may we develop the boundless heart of metta. Thank you for your kind attention. Let's sit quietly together.